All right, turning now to the State of the Union this week. It was a long one, predictably polarizing along party lines. President Trump took credit for Detroit's comeback, pushed for a $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan, wants to lower the price of prescription drugs, and poked at North Korea. He spent a lot of time on his plans for immigration reform, which will be a big topic this coming week in Washington. One family anxious to hear the president's immigration rationale, the Garcias of Lincoln Park. You remember Cindy Garcia's husband, Jorge, was deported this month back to Mexico, despite having lived here since he was 10 years old with no criminal record, a job, he paid taxes, and he tried to become a citizen through the legal channel since 2007. Cindy Garcia was at the State of the Union address as a guest of Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. And we'll talk about a couple of aspects of the State of the Union, but I do want to start with immigration because that seems to be a large push point the president spent a lot of time on. But I find it really interesting that the GOP, that they have their conference and summit, and it's not even an official item on the agenda this week, immigration reform. But Daniel, let me start with you. Do you believe that the president made his point only to his supporters, or a broader base when he was talking about what reform they should do and saying, well, Americans are dreamers too, and we need to protect Americans and lower wage jobs from people who be coming in and taking them? Specifically, he's talking about immigrants.
I suspect, unfortunate for members of Congress, some aspects of his message resonates more with more people than a lot of people think. I think one of the challenges going forward in immigration is balancing this notion that we are a country of immigrants with we are also a country of laws. And we do have immigration laws on the books. We need to enforce those. I think a lot of people agree with that. Now, what the changes are going forward, people need to have an honest discussion about it. And I think this is in my view, one of the most dishonest debates we have going. It's just people are pushing their own viewpoints, a lot of which is driven by their own political designs. And really not dealing with the fundamental issues. What
do you think are the fundamental issues, or one of the dishonest points that people are pushing back and forth?
Well, the president, for example, seems to get immigrants are criminals.
Right. He spent a long time saying we sent thousands and thousands of gang members back or incarcerated.
And I think one of the things on the Democratic side is that there's ultimately a political gambit here for them. A lot of immigrants tend to be more, I think, in general, tend to be more Democratic voters than Republican voters. And there's a benefit for that.
Yeah. The big problem with what this president is talking about and what he talked about during the State of the Union is, so if you think back 2 years ago when he was starting to run for president, he was talking a lot about illegal immigration, right? He wanted to build a wall between this country and Mexico.
He still
wanted
does.
to crack down. But notice how the debate has shifted on his side to legal immigration and changes to legal immigration that are fueled by this nationalist and bigoted set of philosophies that now exist in the West Wing, talking about this idea of quote-unquote merit-based immigration. That's code for going back to a time when we look at where somebody is coming from and think about who they are and what their ethnic background is before we let them into this country. That's the danger, I think,
and that's a different debate.
In what he's talking about.
Well, but it's also part of kind of a four-pronged approach that the president is looking for when he's talking about immigration reform. But when you look at what Congress has to deal with in terms of with the DACA protections that's running out in early March, I guess, what do you think that they're actually going to be able to get to or actually going to be able to push through?
I don't know. I
don't think they'll get anything.
I don't think they're going to get anything done. I think this is going to get more problematic. I mean, come on, you're in an election year. The Democrats think they're going to be able to take the House, and they may have a pretty good shot at it. And why would they give him anything?
All right, let's talk about something more exciting like infrastructure.
You said, bring the show to a halt.
Hey, now infrastructure may not be sexy to you, but it is very, very important. All right, so the president said $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan. That's what he's looking for, and it's funny. I mean, everyone can agree that yes, we've got to do something about it, but.
We've heard that number before, by the way.
Yes.
Right, but where?
Obama had that number.
Where do you actually start? And would the president have gotten a little bit farther if he had actually started with something like infrastructure instead of immigration as a key plan?
Well, I think he allowed his obsession with his base to get in the way of a smart kind of political rollout, legislative agenda. I think you're exactly right. I think Democrats would have been far more willing to work with the president over infrastructure. I mean, good Lord, you go to some of these cities on the coasts, they got terrible, we got terrible infrastructure problems here,
yeah.
but you got on the coast, they got, you know, terrible issues with bridges and tunnels and the whole 9 yards. I think that's something that can unite a lot of people, frankly. Yeah. Although, as we've seen here in Michigan, it has not been a uniter.
It's hard to get people. So people want better roads, they want better bridges and tunnels and sewers and all those things. But then when you talk about how we pay for it, then you get these sort of splintering offs where people are like, well, I don't want to pay more at the pump for it, or I don't want to pay more at my registration. I mean, that's where we have trouble, and that's why here in Michigan, you know, the governor started this conversation in his first term, and we still don't have money, or the money that we need to fix the roads, let alone the other infrastructure.
It always comes down to who's going to pay.
Well, but the president, I think, also underestimates how hard it is to sell some of these things. I mean, and Governor Snyder, infrastructure is an excellent example.
Yeah.
All right. Well,